Almost there, baby. The Super Bowl in late April. Welcome into the first ever PFF pre-draft props show presented by FanDuel. We're pretty excited. I mean, it honestly feels very similar to the biggest game, not just from how you wake up in the morning, but also, hey, there's a ton of different ways to engage in this draft, really like nothing we've seen before. I've got the big guy, Dr. Eric Eager, here with me, and we're going to do something really fun for the next 30 minutes. We are going to try and predict the top 10 picks. And we want you to join us by heading over to fanduel.com/PFF. You can play for free, try and predict the top 10 picks, and win a share of a $10,000 prize pool. But the best part is that they're going to donate to COVID-19 relief for every person that signs up. So you get to play for free and do some good. It's a lot of fun. And Eric, I'm excited to go on this little process because this is unlike any other draft that we have seen before, and it's probably going to make for some pretty crazy stuff that's going to happen early on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've changed my top 10 probably 4, 5, 6 times just in the last few days. So much news coming out. And what's really cool is, if you look at, sports books like the one at FanDuel, you can see some of these sort of changes in consensus in real time. Hopefully we're able to capture sort of that truth right here at the end.
Yeah, I tried to do this on Monday. I had a couple of wrinkles I felt good about. I'm still wavering a little bit. I got a little bit of gumption earlier today. We'll see how that goes. Want to remind you guys, if you are listening right now on SiriusXM channel 211, thank you. If you're watching us on Twitter or YouTube, hello. We're going to have plenty of stuff for the next half an hour here, and then we'll continue on for the entirety of the draft as well, starting at 7:40. So stick with us for the whole time. It won't be just Eric and I promise. We'll bring in some other people. And we've also got Cris Collinsworth going to come hang out with us to talk a little quarterbacks in about 7 minutes or so. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and start with the number 1 pick. This is not going to be a surprise. I don't think the Bengals are coming off of Joe Burrow. So I've got Burrow going number 1, and I think it's a new day for the Bengals franchise.
Yeah, we're the same here. I think even if the Bengals were to somehow give up the pick via trade, it's Burrow. So let's move on to the second pick.
And this is where things could get interesting, but the word is not going to get that interesting. I can't understand how Washington isn't enticed by the trade proposals. Yep. But then again, I can understand it. And so that's why Chase Young, to me, is the obvious choice here at number 2. I'm going to start out with two chalk picks, and it's going to get funky from here on out.
Yeah, I think if you look at some places, Young is an overwhelming favorite to go to. He is also an overwhelming favorite to go to Washington, but by a little bit less. So there is a little bit of a chance that there's a trade here, but I don't see it happening either. Give me Young here at 2.
Okay, so at number 3, I'm thinking to myself, the Detroit Lions are sitting here. They maybe like a couple of different players. But I keep coming back to Burrow and Young. Really, to me, feel like the 2 players that have separated themselves from the rest of their position, and everyone else is sort of jumbled together. And I think the Lions look at that and they say, hey, if we can get one of these teams to bite, we're going to move back. And so I believe that number 3 will not be made by the Lions. I'm going here with Tua Tagovailoa. I said that wrong. I've been practicing all week and I even said it wrong. It's okay. I've got a few hours to practice. I just think Tua will end up going here. I think the Dolphins have been blowing a little bit of smoke, and they're going to trade up and snag the second best quarterback in this draft.
Yeah, I'm going to vary from you a little bit. I think it's actually going to be the Los Angeles Chargers that are going to move up, but for the same player.
So you're not varying with me at all?
Yeah, well, the mechanism might be a little bit different, but I'm going to go with Tua Tagovailoa.
Tagovailoa. I think I'm getting there.
Yeah.
He is currently plus 240 to go 3rd overall. The favorite is Jeff Okuda.
That's right.
And that is why I believe that it'll be Tua ultimately, because there has been a lot of talk about, maybe Jeff Okuda isn't really that much better of a corner than CJ Henderson. And CJ Henderson's been skyrocketing up. And it just comes down to the Lions maybe get a little skittish and go, hey, if we can accumulate one more pick, we can maybe still get our guy. Why would we not move down? So it just makes a ton of sense there. At number 4, the Giants, I would think, would be wishing they could trade down. but they probably don't have that option if someone trades up to 3. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say. I ultimately think, though, that they'll stick there and they'll go with the guy who's favored to go in that spot, which is Tristan Wirfs. Originally on Monday, I thought it'd be Jedrick Wills. I thought it'd be Mekhi Becton this morning. And now it seems like there's a lot of steam in the direction of Tristan Wirfs, who, by the way, our projections think is going to be fantastic. He tested out of this world. He graded incredibly well. So Tristan Wirfs is the guy at 4 for me.
Yeah, he wasn't quite as good when we did some of the text analytics on him, I believe, but certainly a good draft pick in this spot from our projections. I like him there. The Giants are minus 450 on FanDuel to take an offensive lineman with this pick, and at minus 110 to take Wirfs, which was not the case just 24 hours ago. But I do believe in this steam here.
So we're 4 picks through. Do you feel right now that you have made any drastic departures from the norm?
I don't think so. Even though Jeff Okuda is the favorite to go 3rd, I think that eventually the quarterback will reign supreme. And just because we haven't seen what we saw in 2018, which is the Jets move up, weeks before the draft, I eventually think that we'll see that, where you have a quarterback going 1st, you have what people consider a generational player going 2nd at a non-quarterback position, and then you have a team that trades up for 3 to take a QB. I don't think it's anything out of the norm. We are going to see a little bit of a deviation, though, thereafter. But yeah, the first 4 picks, I think at this point, this is probably what the chalk would be.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and we talked to Peter King earlier this week, and he said something that I thought was really interesting. All this noise about Dave Gettleman being unable to work a keyboard and figure out Zoom, that's nonsense. It's not that hard. And I actually think that it will facilitate some of the conversation, and I don't think it'll be a barrier to getting a trade up for a quarterback. And these picks are valuable because of the potential for a quarterback. I mean, it's just so staggering what it can do to your team versus even a very good player at another position. And the NFL, maybe they're taking a few too many running backs in the early rounds still, but they know how valuable a quarterback is. That's something that is tried and true. So to me, Tua going at 3 should not be that crazy of a choice. I think plus 240. I could see it moving closer to even money by the time this happens. So there's another quarterback that has not gone yet. And a lot of the talk was, okay, Justin Herbert is a guy who the Dolphins like. Are they going to try and trade up and get him? There's then a bunch of noise about how maybe they're going to trade up to 3 and then package 3 and 5 to go up to 1. All this stuff going on. And that got us thinking about the merits of taking Justin Herbert. And a lot of the conversation about why you would take Justin Herbert has to do with his ability to sustain an NFL career because of his lack of injuries, and also the kind of physical tools that he had. We have decent physical tools. We never played in the NFL. So I figured we could bring someone in who's played in the NFL that could talk to us a little bit about, kind of the mechanisms by which a guy like Justin Herbert might end up vaulting to us. So we'll bring in Cris Collinsworth here, who's joining us from not too far away from where the Miami Dolphins are going to be playing in Florida. Cris, what's going on, man?
Just hitting the unmute button. Don't want to make the first technical mistake of the night here. So I'm under tremendous pressure with all my tech gurus who work for PFF. So I'm trying to hang in there.
Are you telling me that on Sunday night they have people set this up for you? That's unimaginable.
Yeah, you. Andy Freeland. How long do you want me to make this list? I can go right down for a half an hour here.
So talk to me a little bit about when you hear Justin Herbert's name come up. What's your first reaction to that?
It happens every year. I think that I usually make a little money. I didn't this year because you guys are a little too slick. But typically, this is what happens. The top 3 or 4 quarterbacks are, some people say there's none in the top 10. Some people say there's one in the first round. And I sit there like my grandfather used to do to me and go, Pretty soon they're all going to be in the top 5. And generally, as we get closer, and you guys are the analytics guys, and you're the ones that tell me, because of the wins above replacement, the war, and all that, that quarterback is the only position that can move that needle. I mean, the greatest of players in the league are, 1.0, they add 1 win per season to a team, where a quarterback, in the case of a Tom Brady or one of those Drew Brees, can add 5, 6, 7, even up to 8 games. So even if you don't love Justin Herbert, even if you think Tua's hip is too bad to function during the course of the next 10 years, you still live under the threat that that guy could end up being an all-pro, a Drew Brees, a Tom Brady, a Russell Wilson, whoever you want to talk about. And if he is, you're an idiot, right? As the GM, you just became an idiot. And so what happens? Now you get nervous. Now you go back and you start watching the tape. And, oh, boy, he's 6'6", and he runs 4.7. And, oh, I like that throw and motion over the top. And, oh, did you see him throw that post pattern 50 yards down the field in the pouring rain? And you talk yourself into what your eyes never saw in the beginning.
Yeah. And I mean, you bring up such a great point with, the risk, right? If you don't take Chase Young and he ends up being Lawrence Taylor, the risk still isn't that high because, Washington may win a Super Bowl or two, but they're not going to win it without a QB, right? If you pass on Patrick Mahomes or, the Miami Dolphins, 15 years ago, if you signed Dante Culpepper instead of Drew Brees, now you're talking about, sustained success, sustained brilliance. And that's really what these, they've seen it a number of times. And that's why they're always going to gravitate towards that high payout that is a quarterback. The question in this particular draft is, are the risks worth the reward in this situation? Tua being his hip and his ankle, and Justin Herbert just being kind of that he was mediocre in terms of production at Oregon.
But Chris, I mean, you see the best quarterbacks pretty much every Sunday night, right? And the thing that sticks out to me about all the best quarterbacks, and this is a mathematical fact as well, is they're all really accurate. The one thing that Justin Herbert is not, you don't start the Justin Herbert litany of pros with he's accurate. You do that for Tua. Is it possible to win in the NFL without being an accurate thrower of the football?
It's possible. I don't like my odds of that happening. But I do think there's, we went through this with Josh Allen a season ago, right? You look at a guy that's a big, physical, strong guy who can run the football, who can create and do various things. I tend to, you guys laugh at me, but I tend to think that the difference is watching the footwork of these various guys. You watch Justin Herbert, he's 6'6". So when he needs to get in position to throw the ball, there's a lot of things that have to move, right? I mean, there's a lot of big body parts that have to move. When I watch Tua play, and to some extent when I watch Joe Burrow play, I think those guys are so efficient. I think Tua will come in the league as one of the best 5 quarterbacks with his footwork from day one.
Wow.
So he's putting himself in position, and he has this frenetic pace to decision making and what he's seeing. And he's so well coached by Saban and everybody else down there at Alabama that you can see the efficiency of what he's going through. So I don't look at Tua as a guy that has to be completely healthy. I mean, back in the day, there used to be a saying that you didn't become a real quarterback until you had your first knee injury and you started sitting still and reading defenses in the pocket, right? And I think that Tua has already jumped that hurdle. I think Joe Burrow has already jumped that hurdle. I don't think Justin Herbert has jumped that hurdle yet.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, that's a good way to put it. And the thing about Burrow and Tua that they have is that they have, I would say, plus athleticism for the position, but they don't rely on it. And that's a really important point to what you're saying is in the NFL, you sort of have to win in the pocket. But some of the really plus players of the position, the Wilsons, the Mahomes, they win in the pocket, but then they can beat you with their legs, even though they don't necessarily need them all the time.
Those guys you just mentioned make the easy throws, though. And that, to me, is the separator and why, even though there's a ton of Justin Herbert love that's been floated out there, I can't imagine any organization watches both those quarterbacks and goes, you know what? The bigger risk is injury compared to accuracy. Because accuracy, without it, to me, it's a non-starter. Chris, I'm struggling here to fill out the bottom 6 picks here. Something crazy is going to happen. you're pretty good at coming up with some crazy scenario, some Cleveland Farrell popping into the top 10. What do you think is something that no one's really been talking about that might happen in the top 10 tonight?
I think it's entirely possible the Chargers do not take a quarterback.
Wow.
I could be way wrong on that. I like the look of their roster. I think they have an unbelievable secondary at this point. They have tremendous receivers. They have pass rushers that can go get the quarterback. And the one thing that they've always sort of bypassed has been offensive tackles. I can't even really explain it. They have a chance at the end of the first round here, especially if they could trade back, which would be my favorite thing for them to do, to have both tackle positions settled in one draft. And for a team that didn't win many games last year, I was sitting there watching them, and I said, this team is just too good to be playing like this. We saw them against the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. And I really feel like that the Chargers legitimately have a chance to win. Now, the problem the Chargers are going to have is that they've got to sell tickets, and they've got, the personal seat licenses and whatever else the heck they're going to have going on with that stadium. But they have to make a splash. If you're asking me from a football standpoint, I'm taking a tackle. If you ask me from, oh boy, we're the number 2 song in Los Angeles right now, and we've got an empty stadium, and we have to go make a difference, then I think they're going after a quarterback. And to me, Tua is the much splashier quarterback than Herbert is, even though he's a West Coast guy.
There's a guy named Cam Newton, also plays quarterback, that's out there. I'm just saying, a lot of different options. Chris, you're going to rejoin us in like 25 minutes. Go grab a sandwich or whatever you need, and we'll see you in a little bit. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, Chris.
All righty. I think I've changed my thoughts here based on that. I'm sold on them going Cam Newton. So at 5, this is where I had the Lions trading down to, and I believe that they are going to take Derek Brown, who I would never choose even in the first round because of the value that you get at that position. I'm not saying he's a bad football player. The value you get at that position, there is a ton of steam on him going under 7.5, and I think he goes at 5 here.
Yeah, he's an overwhelming favorite to go under 7.5. So I don't hate that as well. And in fact, I'm probably going to use that myself. For me, so I went with the Chargers trading up to 3 to get to so I'm still sitting here at 5 with the Miami Dolphins. And I think, despite much like your Brown pick, I would never do this. I think at 5, they will, with their natural pick, take Justin Herbert of Oregon.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. It's something that, as Chris said, is just hard to ignore, right? When someone comes in and blows you away physically and you need to kind of rejuvenate your organization, that's an easy one to take there. Okay, so we're at 6. I still have the Chargers here at 6. I do think that they would like to trade down, and someone would like to come up and maybe get Justin Herbert. I could see the Jags maybe doing that. But I don't know if Justin Herbert can beat out Gardner Minshew, and that should give them a little bit of pause. So I have the Chargers here at 6. I think they'll stay at 6, and I'm going to have them going with Jedrick Wills, the tackle from Alabama, who didn't grade as well for us, but has really kind of risen. He was the favorite to go to the Giants just like 24 hours ago. So I'm going Wills at 6.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions pick here at 6. They're going to get their guy despite moving down. They're going to go Jeff Okuda, cornerback, Ohio State. Okuda's looked great in literally everything we've done from an analytics perspective, except for, weirdly, the text analytics stuff, which is interesting. But I think he's somebody who people are going to overthink. And, much like Denzel Ward a couple years ago, much like a lot of, of these elite cornerbacks, don't overthink it. Take the guy, shore up your defense, and do so with extra picks.
And that is what I'm thinking at number 7. So Okuda has already fallen from the favorite to go 3. Now I have him sliding down the board. There's another couple of guys that are sliding down the board as well. The Panthers have Teddy Bridgewater. They seem to be excited about him. I could see them going receiver, but they have just paid a receiver to play running back, sort of. They got DJ Moore. He's pretty good. Samuel's not too shabby. And Jeff Okuda is by far the best player at his position remaining. So Jeff Okuda to me at 7, I love this. If I'm the Panthers, I am ecstatic. I would listen to people trying to get up to get Justin Herbert. There's no way in hell I'm taking Justin Herbert. He can't beat out Teddy Bridgewater. So Jeff Okuda at 7 to me, and I would feel great about this for the Panthers. I think this is a very legitimate situation. Okuda and Henderson, there are people out there that have Henderson ahead of Okuda. So to see him slip would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, that's a great spot there. How much thought did you give to Isiah Simmons, who has been mocked, this high for most of this time?
Let's just talk about Isiah Simmons right now. So on Monday, I did the top 10, and I left Simmons out. And what I was trying to do was say, last year, Cleveland Farrell went in the top 5. Something crazy is going to happen. We're not even close to how crazy this top 10 is going to be. It is going to be nuts. Who's a player that everyone has in the top 10 that maybe is sliding down a little bit, where maybe there's a history of a player kind of like him sliding that I can kind of get crazy with? And he reminds me a lot of Derwin James, not necessarily the way he plays, just the fact that he's multifaceted and he plays all over the field. He fell. I could see Simmons falling as well. And so I think Okuda, because you know what he's going to do, gives you a little bit more assurance. And the Panthers don't have anyone that can cover. So getting a guy out there that can cover at the cornerback position, they know he'll play there. They don't have to worry about assimilating him into this team. And that, to me, is why they go Okuda over Simmons.
Yeah, and, people like certainty at the top of the draft, for better or worse. And, a player whose uncertainty is where he'll play and where he'll have success, even though I think you and I would probably value that, he's probably going to fall as a result. And to that point, I think when I'm looking at Carolina, I think they make a similar move as another rebuilding team, the Miami Dolphins, did last year with their first-round pick and Christian Wilkins. I think the Carolina Panthers at 7 here do go Derek Brown, and
wow.
That's where you see the under 7.5 prop hit here. I think they try to rebuild a defense with, a player up front like Brown.
All right, we are at 8, and this is the Arizona Cardinals. And everyone sort of wants them to take a Tristan Wirfs, an offensive tackle, and I am struggling to give them one. I really am. I want to, but I have a hard time doing so with Simmons on the board. But I'll say this: they've invested in that offense a ton, and Mekhi Becton is a freak, and he is a guy that when you bring him in, he's just going to impress everybody. And so it's like an automatic win for a franchise that has been winning this offseason. So I'm going to go with Mekhi Becton at 8 to the Cardinals. It's not a pick that I would necessarily make. He's a guy that has a ton of variance because he hasn't played a ton of actual true NFL pass protection sets. He's been moved from left to right tackle. But that's just the kind of pick that I could see the Cardinals making. He's an impressive dude. So I'm going to go Becton at 8 to the Cardinals.
I agree with you on position. I disagree with you on player, but that's only because I'm able to take Jedrick Wills here because I took Herbert higher. I'm going to go with Wills here for Arizona for the exact same reason. I think if they would not have made the nuke trade, wide receiver would have been a position here that they could go for. But Wills makes too much sense.
I like it. Okay, so at 9, the Jaguars. Now, to me, the Jaguars have a choice here between CeeDee Lamb and Justin Herbert. I think that's what they'll come down to. And CeeDee Lamb is the overwhelming favorite to be the first receiver off the board. And so to me, they go CeeDee Lamb here. They give Gardner Minshew a guy that can catch the football. And then if Gardner Minshew can't do it, next year they come back and go quarterback. So I'm going to go with CeeDee Lamb. They're a team that, leverages math quite a bit, throughout their organization. I think that they do so here, and that's why they don't take Herbert. And so CeeDee Lamb is the pick.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. Lamb has ascended over Judy as the number 1 receiver. I'm going to go here, though, a little bit off the wall. I think the Jaguars are going to prepare themselves to take Fields or Lawrence next year, and as such, they're going to build away from offense. I think they're going to go with CJ Henderson of Florida here at 9. And, we've seen him skyrocket up the board. 16.5 was his prop for a while. Now I believe it's like 12.5, and even then still, shaded towards the under. I think this is where he goes as they try to rebuild a defense that lost AJ Boye and Jalen Ramsey over the last 12 months.
You're thinking like I am. So at 10, this is where the Browns are. I believe the Browns will trade down because they're going to look for an offensive tackle. There's a bunch of offensive tackles that are still there. Andrew Thomas still on the board. Josh Jones still on the board. And a team that has been trying to trade up, that has made a ton of moves up in the past, the Atlanta Falcons, go up and get CJ Henderson at 10. So I have CJ Henderson rounding out my top 10 in a top 10 that I feel automatically horrible about, which means maybe it has a chance.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially if Mekhi Becton is off the board, because he, I think, comps very well to the Browns. If he's off the board, I think they move back. I am also going to advocate a trade up here because the Browns need tackles. There's plenty of them in this draft. They can get one later. And I'm going to throw something against the wall here. I think probably a team like Kansas City, a team that's trying to enhance the strength of the wide receiver position, will trade up to 10 and take Henry Ruggs of Alabama. Ruggs is the first wide receiver off my board, which is, I know, a long shot, but I think, the Chiefs with 32 with Chris Jones, I think they have the ammunition to do it. And this would be, a lot of fun to see in the Kansas City's offense.
Personally, I hate it because I'd like to see Ruggs selfishly slip a little bit. But this is exactly the kind of move that it's shocking on its face, and that's something that's going to happen probably like 2 or 3 times in the first 30 minutes of the draft. So I like it quite a bit. If you have one, and we'll get out of here on this, like 20 seconds each, one pick where you feel the least secure, where is it?
I think it's probably the Tua pick. Okay. I picked the Chargers, but I think it could very well be the Dolphins.
Yeah, I'm close there. I do feel better about Tua than I do some of the picks later on down the road. The CeeDee Lamb one is the one that I'm kind of the most confused by, just because the Jaguars need so many things. It's a great place for someone to trade up. And I like the fact that they could take a corner there. So a lot of things that I think can go 8, 9, 10, weird stuff that can happen. So that is our top 10. You should pick your top 10. You can go to FanDuel.com/PFF. You can enter for free. That's the best part. You make a donation to charity in doing so. And if you do a good job, you get a chance to win a share of $10,000. So it's literally a win-win-win situation. And the good news is you don't have to compete with our brackets. We're just giving you a little advice. Take it or leave it. And then, of course, join us at 7:40 for our full draft coverage. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you later.